We back. Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 5 of the Scruffy City Beat. This is a new podcast from WBR about Knoxville's music scene. My name is Jillian Taylor and I'm the host. I'm a visual storyteller at the station and I also get to do this podcast about music. It's very exciting. This week's episode was going to be with a musician who has some new music out, but earlier this week I was scrolling social media, as one does, and came across this really wacky video that drew me in. It's posted by Knoxville, which if you watch this podcast, you know who Knoxville is. He's on here the owner, Jared Hageman's on here every week talking about music. And he posted this, and this is video of Trey McReynolds. He went by Colonel Bacchus in the scene, and he unfortunately passed away last Saturday. He was a really key figure in the scene, did just a ton of shenanigans. Like as soon as I started looking him up, it was just flooded with like wacky careers, hobbies, artistic endeavors. I mean, this guy was creating his whole life and he was larger than life, but people say that he also was like a quiet, really sweet guy. And he just had this larger than life personality that just made for some wild shenanigans and parties. And so this week I really wanted to change directions and do a feature on him. So this episode is going to be with two of his closest friends, Brian, who runs Pluto Sports, and Nate, who's involved in the Kick Turn Party radio segment that airs on Fridays on the Knoxville Community Media. So two longtime skateboarding guys who grew up with Trey. They have a lot of stories to tell. It was really fun to just sit back and listen to the crazy shenanigans that Trey has been getting up to his whole life. And there was just so much joy and fun in the way they reflected on him. So get ready for some weirdness and listen to these stories by two of Trey's closest friends about the incredible artistic, wild life that he lived. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast studio, Scruffy City Beat. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Can you real quick introduce yourselves to me and to the people who don't know who you are?
I'm Nate Holder, local Knoxville resident, skateboarder, and close friend of Trey McReynolds.
I'm Brian Beauchesne. I run Pluto Sports Skateboard Shop. We sell Frisbees for Frisbee golf and snowboards too, but it's a skateboard shop. That's what it started as. And I've been a Knoxvillian for a long, long time.
And recently, you've been a little bit famous. There's been 2 documentaries that have come out in the past, few months about the skateboarding scene, and I've learned a lot. There's a really cool history to it.
Well, nobody seemed to care about skateboarding for 40 years in Knoxville. Now it's like cool, hip, popular. Let's look back, reminisce. You know, people who don't even skateboard think, oh, we need to look into the skateboard history. It's kind of neat. Yeah. People care now. Yeah. Yeehaw.
And it seems like the origin of Knoxville's skate scene is kind of your friend group.
For the most part, it is. Now, there were a couple of people who skated before there were skate parks in Knoxville. They kind of rolled around, they did their thing, and they quit. But the people who started skateboarding in the 1970s, late 1970s, at the area skate parks, there are skate parks all over Knoxville, big ones. There's one in West Knoxville at Orange Wave Skate Park. There was one at Rainbow Skate Park at Walker Springs. There's one in South Knoxville on Chapman Highway, and there's one in Maryville too. And the Orange Wave Skate Park, our buddy Trey McReynolds was there on day one, the first day. There's pictures of him there.
So cool. And that's why we're here this week. Trey McReynolds is one of y'all's best friends. How many years? 30 years of knowing each other and growing up together?
I'm closer to 50 years.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit younger, so I hit the scene in the early 1980s. I met Trey when he came back from New York City in 85, I believe, is the first time I met Trey, and I was 10 years old.
Yeah. So we know Trey through skateboarding because we're serious skateboarders, but Trey was a musician all along. And so in the late 1970s, early 1980s, he had a punk rock band when he was still in high school that would play gigs.
You know what it was called?
It was called Turbine 44.
One of the originals.
It was punk rock.
Yeah.
There is some Turbine 44 on there. Doug Walker actually just sent me a link to a Turbine 44 video that Trey has AI'd.
Oh, I saw that. I saw when I was Googling him. So I have this this laptop here, and I want to try to like play some of the sounds because I think Trey McReynolds is a sound experience. It seems like
Absolutely.
In all sorts of
quoting
ways.
him to me and like
Right.
mimicking his voice, and like he was just this like big loud character in so many different ways, and I want to find some of those bites.
He was larger than life in all sorts of ways, as far as recording, radio, live music,
skateboarding,
yeah. But
frisbee golf.
you know, with music, he did go to college at MTSU for recording.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he was formally trained in how to record. But before that, he was using jam boxes as synthesizers and stuff like that with cassettes. He would rig whatever he had to make whatever music he could. And then he went to, learn professional recording there, and then ended up going to the University of Tennessee in broadcasting. He never did graduate, but he learned a whole lot. And at UT, that's where he was introduced to radio, WUTK 90.3, the student run. 90.3.
Walk me through, like, can you give me a list of all the things that he's done in Knoxville? Because the list keeps growing the more that I talk about him. Like, if you start at where you met him, he was a skateboarder dude, right? What came after that?
Punk band and being in a band, and just that whole, the skateboarding punk rock scene was very intertwined because skaters were punk rock and punk rock were skaters. And so then he got into started his radio show pretty early at New Rock 90, and that was when 90.3 was the only radio station in town that allowed crazy new alternative music that no one had ever heard before. I mean, that was a thing. If you wanted to hear new music, you listened to New Rock 90 on Friday nights or Saturday nights, and that was when they always had the debut stuff.
So that is where he introduced the moniker, the Colonel Bacchus radio show.
Yeah.
So there are people who know him as Colonel Bacchus that don't know his real name is Trey McReynolds. Yeah. Colonel Bacchus.
Is Trey his real name?
John Alfred.
Okay. Because I saw John Alfred pop up also.
Because he's John Alfred McReynolds III.
Okay.
And,
so
Trey.
Yeah. So John. Well, they called him Trey, meaning the third.
Okay.
Right.
Oh.
That's where he got Trey from.
Okay.
French Trey. So he was called Trey as a kid. His real name, John Alfred McReynolds. Now, he would go as a DJ Alfred as a commercial nightclub dance music DJ.
Yep.
And it's
in the 90s, there was like the Underground and
Mooses, yeah.
And he
What's
played.
Mooses?
It was a music hall. Moose's Music Hall is what it was called. Yeah. And
Do you know
that's
what stands
bands
there now?
played there. Oh, it's demolished now.
Now, it was on Cumberland Avenue, line out the door, college dance bar. Okay.
Oh.
And then he went to DJ at Tonic in the Old City. Then he went to DJ at the Underground, huge dance club. And then it was on to Fiction.
Yep.
Yeah, which is now
I forgot about Fiction.
built into Luniverse by the Scott and Bernadette West, and of course he's friends with them. But so people that know him as this avant-garde, crazy radio DJ, because this stuff was like, it was hard to listen to, but you couldn't stop listening to it. It was out there, but it hit home.
The Colonel Bacchus radio show.
That's been quoted to me so many times.
And so there's so many people who know him as the Colonel Bacchus radio show.
Let's see if I can find that
don't know. They're like, you can't be the same person that plays cheesy dance music at a nightclub for frat boys or whoever it is.
And he actually kept that very separate.
Very separate, to where you didn't know that he was that DJ and this radio guy, because it would hurt the reputation of either one.
Yeah.
So he was like, no.
He would lose credibility on either side of that coin if you knew that it was the same guy.
Yeah, it seems like he had like multiple personas.
He did, and he carried them off.
Yeah.
Now, one thing he did, and I've thought about this recently, is everywhere he went, he surrounded himself with people that would help him with this endeavor. And with the radio show, it was with the New Rock 90 Colonel Bacchus radio show, it was Benny Smith.
Yep.
Yeah, and Benny enabled him to be this crazier than life radio, where it was like, you can't be this crazy on the radio.
Especially then.
Because he even had a 24-hour radio show. He would have every Labor Day for what was used to be called Boomsday. They had fireworks here. It was this big fireworks festival on the river, and he would broadcast because he knew all these people would be within, listening range of his broadcast out of the New Rock 90 studio. So he would do this crazy, he would do this thing for 24 hours, and by the end of it, he was delirious.
And we would come in, we would stop in and do 5 or 30 minutes and just pop in and say, but he would go the whole 24 hours. It was,
sounds so fun.
It was.
It was, but he was frazzled by the end of it. And back then, it wasn't computer. It wasn't loading the music by computer. It was
very analog.
It was, putting little cassette tapes in, basically, carts, they called it. And he would forget how long he's had the thing in, because it wasn't a computer. So he's like, I don't know when this is going to end or start because I've been here for 24 hours. My brain is just jarbled. Yep. And we would bring him food and stuff like that. But he did it every year. It was this extravaganza. But his regular show was every Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had regular listeners all over.
There's so many little movies of him on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one thing that helped him have a lot of stuff, he had I'll call him a personal videographer, Jay Kabler.
Yep.
Every Sunday, Trey would call Jay.
Nathan is the kid. That's me.
Every Sunday, those two would get together and go film something.
Yeah.
And Jay would go along with whatever Trey's creative mind would do. And they were just outlandish, ridiculous.
This is it right here.
He's skateboarding on dirt.
The swamp thing, driving down the road and seeing a sliding pond, and Trey would say, pull over, I'm going to go jump in that sliding pond.
It's shopping cart in snow. Inside a shopping cart.
So the thing that really
These are your friends?
that was baffling about Trey is he was a very kind of quiet, reserved guy if you were just hanging out. But if you turned a camera on him, he turned into Colonel Bacchus.
It turned on.
Gonna be on the TV.
You said Bacchus means the god of partying?
God of wine.
God of wine.
Yeah.
And there is a parade in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, the Bacchus parade, but Bacchus is the god of wine.
And originally, we were talking about this the other day. Originally, I think he was talking about on a radio show a few weeks ago. He started out as Captain Bacchus. And we have a friend, Doug Ayers, that couldn't remember Captain and kept calling him Colonel. Well, then he finds out that there's actually another Captain Bacchus out in the world somewhere. So he's like, Colonel Bacchus. That's what I'm going to
Colonel Bacchus flows off the tongue way better.
It's way better. It's way cooler.
It's an amazing name.
So
why do you think he did have this, if he was a shy, kind of quiet guy, where did this persona come from?
He's always been an artist. And artists are just kind of... They don't flow with the normal, get a job, do your normal thing. His family, his dad was an attorney. They lived in nice suburban homes. He never really aspired to be rich. No, he was rich in friends and experiences and creativity.
Rich in life, for sure.
But did the guy ever have a lot of money? He did not. He was always, years he didn't have a car. He worked downtown and he would skateboard to work. Every day, rain, snow, sleet, hail. He had special boards to ride in the rain. He didn't own a car in Knoxville, Tennessee. Imagine that. And so people would see him. If you live near him
as the skateboarder guy.
Because it would be driving rain. And there he is skating down the road. I
have a package to show you after we go to break and come back. I'm going to show you a package that's literally called, I pulled it from our archives yesterday. It's called Skateboarder Guy. Aired in 2004. It's just called Skateboarder Guy. That's the line.
So we all lived in Fort Sanders in the 80s and 90s, and we all lived, I guess, within a few blocks of each other. So, I was growing up. I was still in high school in the 80s, and so I would always be going to high school or whatever, getting in and out of the neighborhood, and there would always be going Trey. And, my dad, who lived in Fort Sanders for 40-something years, was like, I saw your buddy Trey the other day. It was pouring rain, and there he went right by me on a skateboard. I'm like, yeah, that's Trey.
Oh, my gosh.
And Fort Sanders really was a special place during that time. I lived there for about 20 years, and I got out alive, but not everybody did. Honestly. I mean, it's sad, but it was a lot of musicians. Yeah. It wasn't just students. It wasn't at all. There were a lot of, musicians, artists, punk rockers, just deviant people who lived in Fort Sanders, and he was one of them. And we would all go to similar parties and gatherings, and, at that time there weren't such video cameras to track your life, and so we would have keg parties on the regular. Yeah. It wasn't just like, oh, it's Friday night. It's like, no, it's Tuesday. Yeah. We're having a keg, and there were these skateboard ramps in the back of a couple of houses there. I had a
We had a volleyball court.
I had a skateboard ramp in the basement of one of my houses. We had a lot of skateboard activity and musical activity too. There was a speakeasy type bar, I would call it, that had bands in the basement.
Oh, cool.
And people would come, touring bands that couldn't get a show in a real club or whatever because they weren't produced well, didn't have a manager or whatever, would play in Kevin Nicely's basement. And Trey lived in that house too with Kevin. And then that bar turned into Mercury Theater, if you've ever heard the legend of that club on Market Square. It was shut down
as a speakeasy and became the Mercury Theater.
It's cool.
It was more profitable and better as the speakeasy. Yeah. Ask Kevin about it. And Trey lived there in that house at that time.
So cool.
And bands like The Obsessed, super heavy metal rock band, played there, not at a club. Yeah.
Knoxville is so cool. And this is I have a lot of conversations on the podcast about like what's the culture in Knoxville and how is it perceived. And there's just so much like cool grunge art history that's even currently still happening that my goal here, in addition to a couple other things, is for that to become a more central part of Knoxville's narrative over football.
Well, the music scene here, going back to the Judy Bats and the Viceroys, through the days of Super Drag, and I mean, there's big name. Super Drag toured with what was the Foo Fighters? They toured with the Foo Fighters.
But the punk rock scene around Cumberland Avenue and Bundooley's, Turbine 44. Coro, and then those other bands that came after that. The scene there when Black Flag would play on Cumberland Avenue.
Played Vic and Bills.
And REM when they were smaller, they, not punk rock, but there were some really big acts.
The B-52s and REM both came out of Atlanta, played bars on the Strip back in the 80s.
Yeah. So the scene on Cumberland Avenue, which kind of bled into this thing of Fort Sanders, when the Chili Peppers would play there, they'd be at the party afterwards, hanging out with everybody else. The Chili Peppers, and only 100 people at the show and 40 people at the party, and those guys partying harder than anybody there.
One of the legendary skateboarders from the 80s who grew up with Tony Hawk was Steve Caballero, had one of the original punk bands in the 80s called The Faction. They played the Strip and then came and skated our half pipe.
Which half pipe?
It was the one that was on Highland Avenue. It has many names. It was DeLong's, the Backyard Ramp, the Fort Sanders Ramp, the THC Ramp. It had several names.
Not the original one? Not the original...
Yeah, it was the original large half pipe that was from 1985 to 1987, 88 when it got torn down.
And it was quite a scene because not only was there this big ramp there that everyone would skate from all over East Tennessee.
And no parents. It was just skaters
that lived in the house. So it was just constant beer drinking.
We called it the ramp house.
And people would just pull up with kegs. Hey, keg here. And then next door... in a teepee, Hippie Jack.
Yeah, Teepee Jack.
lived in a teepee in the backyard next door. It gets worse.
It gets
worse. There's a guy who lives in the tree above the ramp, and when I say
built a condo,
in the tree?
This guy's named Cornhead, and he lived in a tree. How do you live in a tree? He climbs up a ladder. There's a pipe up there. He is running cold water.
And
electricity and cable TV.
Yep, it had cable, electricity, and cold water.
It was nicer than the house. Because in the house, everybody was welcome. It was just a drunken mess inside. But the treehouse, you had to climb that ladder. He didn't let everybody in there. The treehouse was way nicer than the house.
Carpeted, super decked out, but
air conditioning.
We would be in the ramp house watching TV during a storm, and you would see the tree start swaying and a bolt of lightning, and the next thing you know, here comes Cornhead down his road, running inside.
Oh my God! I wish I could transplant those memories into my head. That's amazing.
And that was J-Cab lived in the front of the house, Adam lived in the back of the house, and Cornhead lived in the tree.
But, I lived across the street at the time during some of that, and Trey lived down the street and over a block. And
I was half a block over.
It was just a circle of mess there. And, that was the center of it.
I want to show this package that I've been texting Jared Hageman about Colonel Bacchus, because he posted that video of all the skateboards, and he, I think, was about to do a story about Colonel Bacchus right before he passed over the weekend. Was it over the weekend?
It was last Saturday.
Last Saturday, okay. Okay. Well, Trey, Jared sent me this video, and it was like, I'm trying to figure out what this is about. I think it's related to Trey somehow. And this is a WBIR news report, 10 Action News, about the firework wars and the devilish behavior of the teenagers in Fort Sanders. I just want to show you. And at the end,
we weren't teenagers.
Oh my God, you weren't teenagers.
It was out of hand. Yeah, we would.
Good evening. A fireworks battle between neighbors turns an Independence Day celebration into a
very serious
mess.
News.
Neighbors in the Fort Sanders area are picking up the pieces.
We talked about this on the phone the other day, and I'm not giving anybody away, but there were lots of us were there.
Jennifer and Leslie joins us live from Highland Avenue with the story. Jennifer? Bill and Edie, according to neighbors, this street was the battle line.
It was. One side of the street versus the other.
This is very serious. This is very, very serious.
So this is the 12 o'clock news started with this.
This is the lead story?
The lead story on the 12 o'clock news. And this, we just unloaded on each other, shooting fireworks back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, so we landed a few inside the house, and he's not real happy because he's the landlord.
Yeah.
But they were shooting at us. He was the landlord.
That's the ramp house. That was the ramp house.
And that's just some of the beer that we drank.
That's 2217 Highland. Yeah. That's the ramp house.
Some of this mess, I think, is the oldest of the videos. Yeah. Some of it.
So the half pipe is behind that house right there.
Highland Avenue. Look at that beer can.
Yeah. It was carnage.
And
so we blew up his house. He wasn't real happy.
He was across the street from the ramp house.
Somehow,
poor guy.
He owned it. He didn't live there. There were college students in there who were shooting back and forth, So everybody was having a good time. Except her. Well,
I went to high school with her.
Stick in the mud.
I literally went to high school with her.
Have you seen this?
No, I haven't seen it all the way through.
Yeah.
But so the house that they were showing that got wrecked, that backyard backed up to my backyard, and there was all kinds of shrapnel in my yard the next morning that I put some there probably.
It's pretty surprising that none of those houses got burned down because, fireworks landed in the house and you'd see the fireworks blowing up inside the house through the windows.
Were you above 25? Was your brain filling it up?
No.
You were below 25. It's fine. That's fine. Below 25.
I mean, I wasn't, but I can't speak for everybody.
Here's the fun part.
So Brian and
you don't say anything. I want to see if Brian knows.
Really no idea, neighbors.
Because I already told him about this. So.
It was some sort of game or a prank arising from a rivalry, and this is not the first time.
Do you recognize who it is?
We know who it is.
Yeah.
We talked about
it. Yeah.
We're not gonna say.
And so we saw
he doesn't live in Knoxville anymore.
So we saw that they were setting up, and then we're like, somebody go out there and walk behind them. Just get in the live shot. So the mayor, Victor Ashe at the time, was even mad about it. He did a little we've got to stop these kids getting this crazy. It was like, okay, maybe we better tone this down. When we're the lead story and the mayor is mad, okay, let's back off a little bit before we go to jail.
And the Knoxville Police Department came by, I think, every day for 3 days in a row, knocking on doors. And
just sniffing you guys out.
Jay, rest in peace. He can't defend himself, but he would see them coming, shut all his blinds, and lock the door, and just pretend that he wasn't home.
Perfect.
And just not answer
Always
the
worked,
door.
I'm assuming?
Yeah, it did. No one ever got in trouble for it.
Right.
No one ever got
arrested
caught.
or anything?
Yeah, nope.
Wow. Hey, I'm impressed because it was very obvious. Well, anywho, we're going to go to a quick break and come back, and I'm going to show you guys this package that I found of Trey because it's really sweet. So we'll be right back. Well, I have this package from 2004. I think it was July 2004, but that month might be wrong. That WBIR aired, simply called "Skateboarding Guy." Somebody, I don't know if y'all know Chris Martin. He's in the punk scene, and he told me, look back in 2004. There's a package about Trey McReynolds, and I wanted to play it for you.
Let's see it.
It's rare for somebody to get a feature just about being a person. He got one. Okay. I'm assuming you guys have not seen this, at least since 2004.
Probably. I'm sure I've seen it. Let's see it. We'll see.
He's got so much footage, it's hard to track it all down.
What was the year that we did the Market Square Colonel Bacchus show?
I don't know. It was great. He did the Colonel Bacchus skateboard show on Market Square, closed off Market Square, and he did this demo. And we would haul in he would have these friends that he would seek out to help him do these great things. And to document it all, Jay Kabler. And with skateboards, a lot of it was me, where he'd go, look, I want to put trucks and wheels on this. And it's like, yeah, be done. He's like, that's why I'm talking to you. Do it. We got to get this done. And so we put trucks and wheels on a dartboard. A dartboard. Skate it down the road, throw darts at it while you're skating. Ow, it's got my toe. Yes. Okay, next, take the wheels off that bicycle, put skateboards under there. Skate bike. Skate that down the road. Well, I need a really long skateboard. How long? 32 feet. How do we get that? Okay, get a motor home, because 32 feet doesn't fit in a pickup truck.
A plank of wood at the lumberyard, the longest one that they had in the lumberyard.
32 feet, put trucks and wheels on it, skate it down the streets of Cumberland Avenue. There's video of him skating the world's longest skateboard down the streets of Cumberland Avenue. That's Trey McReynolds.
Well, and when we did the Market Square thing, where he did the Market Square thing, that was when there was an ordinance in Knoxville and skateboarding was illegal in downtown. And we were able to get Market Square shut down so he could skateboard.
Oh my
and we
God.
could all, and we there was several of us that participated, but it was the Colonel Bacchus skateboard show. And we all loaded our respective cars with all of his stuff and just put it in piles, and he would one by one go through each one and skate it around.
And there's no easy way to talk about his life just in chronological steps, but as his life is going, here it goes here, and he's snowboarding.
At the same time.
You're a snowboarder?
What else did he play? He played Frisbee?
Yeah,
golf.
Frisbee golf. Frisbee golf. And so he started playing Frisbee golf in maybe 1989 and has been playing for the last 35 years competitively. He's played disc golf at courses from California to Florida and everywhere between. And people are just like, you're a skateboarder. Wait, you're playing this Frisbee golf game? Wait, you go snowboarding in the wintertime? Where are you going? Yeah. Just every day it's in a different direction. And he's doing all this crazy art and original music all the time. So in his later years, he really felt inclined to kind of put some music together for really everyone to know him by, and to sum up some of his life and write original music and not just put it on a podcast or put it on YouTube or whatever, but to make vinyl records. Because as a musician that started in the 1970s, having a vinyl record was like the culmination of what you could be. Yeah. So there he does 3, not just 1, but 3 vinyl records. And he would get them shipped to my business because he was scared if they ever got shipped to his house and somebody stole them. He was like, this is more valuable than money. I can't recreate this. You can't just get a vinyl record made at some place down the street, right? And you have to get in line with these companies to have these things made. And he'd have them shipped there. And when they would arrive there, no matter what health he was in, he would find a way to come get them. The last one that arrived, he couldn't come get it that day. So he got his girlfriend, Robin, to come pick him up that day. She opened him up, says, look, Trey said, you're the first person to have one of these. She said, make sure that you get one of these before he does. Yeah.
And
he took
shout out to Arbor Studios here in Knoxville that worked with him, good friends of his that produced all of his records and helped him do it. And that's why his record is Colonel Bacchus and the Arbor Dukes.
Yes.
Is his band, but so shout out to those guys. Both of those guys were instrumental in getting his vinyl to market. And
so cool.
Yeah, it was great.
I was listening to a little bit of it. It's
Yeah.
And it's really humorous, but this last one, The Bride, is about his, his love and battle and enjoyment and roller coaster relationship he has with a skateboard. It's like
the skateboard is his bride.
That's what's on the cover. The Bride, the skateboard.
Well, let's watch some of the wacky skateboards.
Let's do it.
This package.
Let's see it.
Let's just watch it because it was so fun to watch when I was recording in the archival room. Y'all ready?
Yep. Thank you.
I've been skateboarding most of my life.
When riding wasn't enough, the wheels in Trey McReynolds' head started turning.
God, I forgot about some of these.
As he's called, came up with some ideas.
Skate bike.
Sit around and just think of just the stupidest thing you could make. Ride, or that would ride.
And he's pretty much covered the skating spectrum.
Ski pole.
Skateboard.
Yeah.
Different trucks, Viking board, shopping cart board, but that's a shopping cart with a board under it.
And the list rolls on, including a dartboard,
There you go.
true
You
sense,
mentioned that.
a putting green board,
Was that just a log?
pink flamingo
It was.
Board.
Yeah.
and this. You got
The boat. The boat.
With the river hat.
See, he would accessorize. You got to have this hat for that boat.
his personal favorite, the bike board.
Thinking one day I'm going to take a bicycle and get rid of those wheels and make a legal skateboard. Ride down
All the rain this
With a brake.
has been good for his grass board.
I mowed it the other
Love
day,
that line.
but all the clover's coming back.
The sound bites from this are
The board which
perfect.
catches the most attention is the Tennessee Train.
Yeah, this is a 48-footer. It's got 145 broken boards on it, 12 trucks, 24 wheels, and I'm the only one that can ride it that I know.
He had to be in the front, and it would trail behind him.
Colonel Bacchus hopes to add more boards to his collection and eventually tour it around the country. Until then, he'll enjoy his ride right here in Knoxville.
That's going down 23rd Street right there.
It is today.
Yeah.
So cool. It's so much
Yeah.
fun.
Oh man, I missed that.
And the whole time that's going on, he's radio show here. He's sound man for bands here. He's
And he's
in the
working at
winter time.
Pluto.
He's going snowboarding, and he's one of the first people in this area to ride what's called a snow skate, meaning a bindingless snowboard. Which takes a whole lot of skill. You got to be able to snowboard real well, skateboard real well. A bindingless snowboard at ski resorts, not just in the backyard, but get on a chairlift, ride fast, passing up skiers, and you're not strapped to the thing. And there he is, right there with that too. Cutting edge in all sorts of ways. Just, and it's been said that he didn't just think outside the box. He lived outside the box. Everywhere he went, it was just not normal. What he did was just, well, that's not how you do that. That's how I do it.
Brian had the best line the other day when we were talking, and he didn't march to the beat of his own drum. He made the drum, put trucks and wheels on it, then skated it while beating the drum.
Down the road. Because he put trucks and wheels on everything.
everything.
It didn't matter. He put trucks and wheels on it. But, at the whole time, he's got this radio show. And after the radio show ended on New Rock 90, and then he went on to being on a extreme radio station, a normal radio station where he kind of had to, he had to tone it down, but it was like, edgier music there, but he had to tone down from where he was. It wasn't avant-garde. It was regular radio. And then, when that was over, over, he went to online radio. You know, where he had fans
all over the world.
I'd imagine.
You know, that would tune into his broadcasts.
He seems just magnetic. I mean, the second that I started learning little bits, it was like the more information I collected, the more like interesting he got. It didn't stop. It hasn't stopped.
From the first time I met him until the last time that I saw him, Trey was that guy to me. I mean, he was such a great friend, and I mean, I was a punk little kid when I met him, and he treated me just like I was anybody else. I worked with him when starting, I guess I was about 14 when I started working there, until I was about 20, and then my daughter started working there, and he was her favorite person to work with, and would come home every day with Trey stories. Like, Trey
he was so likable. You know, a lot of artists are so offbeat that you can't really communicate with them or whatever. They come off weird or whatever. He just came off a little unusual. Everybody liked him. And that helped him with having these people that help support him. Being a likable person can take you a long ways in all sorts of ways. So he was never strung out on drugs. He was never an alcoholic. He was never a twerp. He was always just a likable person in the room. And that attracted other good people to help support his causes. Because when you're doing that kind of wacky stuff, it's neat to have somebody like Benny Smith that puts you on the radio, or me to put Trucks and Wheels on your bowling ball, or you know, other people to help you with your live music stuff.
You know, Jay going, wherever you're going, whatever you're going to do, I'm there with the camera just to document it.
And there's just hours and hours and hours of video of Trey doing so many unusual
Gonna
things.
be on the TV.
That's one of his quotes from you know, when they came to this, when you know, TV cameras were at the ramp or whatever.
Early or mid 80s, it was the big old VHS camera, and somebody turned it on and pointed. Trey was quiet and reserved until that camera came on. Then he's gonna be on the TV.
Another one. There's no need for that, and we would use that forevermore. When you see something totally, you know, asinine and just there's no need for that.
Make a little soundboard. They make like apps that you can like press to like make sounds of both those. You can hit sayings.
We need to do that for the radio, because we have hot buttons on the radio.
That'd be so
we
fun
need to
on
get some
Kick
of
Turn
those.
Party.
Yeah.
So y'all do a weekly radio show, right?
Yeah,
Every
me
Friday?
and a couple other guys every Friday. We do Kick Turn Party Radio. We also have a TV show, but we've evolved into this radio show because it's so much fun, and we do it every Friday.
Yeah.
But we will talk about that tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're doing an episode tonight.
Yeah, and it'll be dedicated to Trey. It'll probably, like, we play music, but a lot of it's just talk, and we get guests on, different pro skaters or different local musicians. But I have a feeling that today will be all about Trey.
And we're saying that today is Friday the 29th. So if you're watching this after the episode, I'm sure is archived somewhere.
Yeah, we are.
On radiokcm.com.
That's correct.
The URL,
That's correct.
radiokcm.com.
And kickturnparty.com is where you can find all of our TV edits that we put on YouTube.
Sweet. Well, do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you want to offer about Trey?
Well, here's an interesting one. The guy never had any money. You know, I mean, he had enough to eat and pay rent, but he was never wealthy or anything. Turns out he has a stash of cash to throw this afterlife party.
That's news to me.
I know. So he's
that is news to me.
And so he didn't.
So, like,
he was like,
iconic.
as per his wishes, we're not going to have the old stuffy funeral, dress up in a tie, go sit around, hear some pastor talk about. That's not happening. That's not me. I'm not making all my friends do that. I'm having a party, right? And so it's like, okay, let's organize this party. And guess what? There's a little cash to make that happen. And it's like, cash?
That's so true.
I thought dude was.
Got a little cash.
I thought there was some. I think there's about $10,000 there.
My God.
That's such a Trey move.
And that totally took me by surprise.
That sounds like a Trey move.
It's like the guy is, you know, he doesn't spend elaborately on anything, right? And it's like, wait, you've had a heart condition for 10 years. You haven't even been able to work for a few years. You've had cancer in a horrible way for 5 years, and you're telling me that that guy's got cash in the bank.
And he never mentioned it.
Oh, no. That's for this afterlife party that none of us knew about. And I just heard about it after his passing. Wow. That there's, because I'm like, okay, we'll rent a club out and have this, and, I'll pitch in and no. There's money for the afterlife party. And it's not he doesn't want to call it a celebration it's an afterlife party.
Yeah.
Come party. And he wants...
The Colonel Bacchus afterlife party!
For this one, he wants all of his friends to be there. But I think his subgroups are going to have separate parties, too. His disc golf group is like, but we want to have a thing on a Frisbee golf course.
Oh, my God.
With his Frisbees. And that's the idea there, is that we're going to play disc golf with his Frisbee collection, which was eccentric. I can go on about that, of course. He had the wackiest Frisbees there ever were. And then the skateboarders want to do a separate thing for the skateboarders. And then the music people, his bands and radio, and those people are probably going to do some sort of music festival or whatever, some sort of show that's really primarily about his music. Because each one of those segments want to have their own gathering of their own people and be able to tell their own stories, reminisce about the importance of his influence on all of our lives within each one of those realms.
Yeah. It's beautiful to learn about him. I mean, just so fun to learn about this guy.
He is the most unique individual, and I'm so glad that I got to know him for the past 40-something years.
Yeah, he's quite a magnetic personality. And just the nicest guy, never too drunk, drinking, sure, but never too drunk, never being the dumb guy that's causing a fight. Never. Just always the smoothest guy, the casual guy, the guy that's there but not causing a problem, but being the creative one. Hey, let's try this. Can we really do that? Can we get away with that? I think we can, Yeah.
I think we will.
And we did.
Well, y'all, thanks for coming on and telling me the story.
Thank you for having us.
It's so fun to learn about.
It's great to just sit here and talk about him for the past few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone wants to find more stuff about him, literally just Google the name, because the results are endless.
Yeah, the YouTube channel goes on and on. Yeah, you're there for a while.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. I'm sure you'll be back at some point doing what you do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
At a well-known Tennessee skate park, south of Old Halls, you can hear the boards flipping and people slapping.
This is Colonel Bacchus and the Arbor Dukes. Original music. This whole episode is about Trey McReynolds, who you know some about. You've been researching some, right, Jared?
Yeah, I've known him for a few years. But I didn't know the extent of his skateboarding stuff until, his creations until recently.
The lore is crazy on this guy. Mm-hmm. Crazy. If you haven't gone down a research rabbit trail after this episode, you need to.
Yeah.
There's so much to learn. You posted those videos of all his skateboards. Where did you get those videos?
So, I was actually looking for music from some of the older venues that are no longer around downtown. And I came across Jay Cabler, who was another skateboard legend locally. He had done these videos with Trey called the Colonel Bacchus Show, where he was showcasing these skateboard creations that he built over the years, which I'm sure you guys have discussed. But one thing Trey's talked about is that he was never a great competitor, competitive circuit, but he'd make wacky skateboards and he'd turn that into a whole I don't know. It's insane.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Afterwards, I'm going to show you the package that WBR did, because we did a feature on his skateboards. It's such a fun story. I'll show you after we stop recording. We are back with the outro here with Jared Hagman, who runs Knox Ooze, publication help you find music events, and Daniel, my boss, who plays bass in French Toast.
We got to figure out a better intro to me.
Daniel, my boss, seems descriptive. Seems like everything you need to know. My supervisor. We're going to do something a little later, a little different in this outro. Previously, we've done look-aheads the weekend. We're going to change it up a little bit this week because this episode is airing on a Saturday. And we're going to first share some music that we saw this week, best music we saw over the course of the week. And then Jared is going to leave us with something new that's coming out in this next week here in Knoxville. So first, I want to do this new segment of Jared and I sharing the best shows we saw this week, the best music we saw this week. Daniel, if you want to hit that bass. Jared, what's the coolest thing you saw this week?
Oh, Sunset on Central was easily my favorite, which if you don't know, was basically a one-day festival in the Happy Hall area of central and North Knoxville at like Yeehaw, Soul Sprout, with local, regional, and some traveling bands that came through. There was always some weather.
Yeah, some cancels, right?
Well, no, there were no cancels.
They just moved it inside.
Well, Love Drunk had to cancel, I think, but we did Lightning. But they moved the headliner into the inside of Yeehaw, which made it even
Like
more
made
it a party in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I found this out later. They ended up playing until like after midnight. Other bands were coming in and playing sessions, and I was like, oh wow.
That's cool. What was the best set that you saw during the festival?
That's a good question.
You know those magical little music moments?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was running a little bit late because my dog got out, so I missed the first like 3 bands. Long story. So I missed High Days, so I can't speak for them. But I got to Yeehaw just as Lucille Clement was finishing their set, which was my favorite song.
And you've mentioned Lucille Clement before, right? Yeah.
Phenomenal band. Yeah, I mean, and then I brought my bicycle, so I was just biking between all the different venues and hearing all the different music. It was great.
Sounds so fun.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. The weather was not fun. Rain is whatever. Lightning, gets a little squirrely.
I want to go to Central badly someday because just also all those venues right in that little pocket is a perfect little world.
And Knoxville Music Coalition guys, they're raising money so they can have a new venue next year.
Sweet.
An additional.
Do we know where?
I have heard rumors, but
okay.
I'm probably getting it wrong. So
okay. Best music I saw this week. It just so happens I have a little bit of a flex for my story this week. That is not why I chose to do this segment this week, but I saw my favorite artist in concert. My favorite artist is John Bellion. I've loved him since sophomore year of high school. He was like, so many of my formative brain memories are John Bellion songs, like listening with friends on the concrete and all that stuff. He's a big, like, meaningful lyrics guy, but he's very anti-promotion, fame, algorithm, so he hasn't released music or done a concert 7 years. And he did one in New York this weekend, and I went with some friends to go see it, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I like the whole first set I cried, the whole second set I watched in awe. He does like live improvisational mixing with a full band. He'll like go over, he gave like a Jackson 5 rhythm to the piano, and then like start doing one of his songs on top of it, and then had the strings like he'll like go do 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 do, and they have to like do 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 the whole time, and in their little string fairy kind of way, and so he'll do this just magical little mixing experience. And then the last set was like he played party songs and ran around the stage, and we were like thrashing I was down in the pit with like the super fans. The guy next to me solo tripped from Austria for this concert because again he hasn't played a concert in 7 years. So anyone who's liked him in the past 7 years got this one chance to see him, and he says he's never playing again. He says he's never playing again because he has a family. But it was beautiful. It was like a reminder of like why we like music, why we consume music.
And what a great opportunity to go and travel there.
Yeah, it was worth dumping some savings for sure. That's it. I mean, it's literally once in a lifetime to see John Bellion because he doesn't tour anymore.
That's great.
So that was my cool magical music experience.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for the New York City bingo.
You have a New
Okay.
I need to take your laptop away. You did too much research during these.
Did you see an adult on a scooter?
Did I see a dog on a scooter?
An adult.
An adult on oh yes.
Did you see a rat in the subway?
I did. I saw 4 at once on my very last hour there, my very last night there.
Rat king.
Yeah.
Did you see a bagpipe man?
No.
Okay, let's move on. Subway platform musician.
Just one. I was expecting way more.
Trash pile on the sidewalk?
Not that much.
Did you see some?
I saw some.
Okay.
But they're working on that. The Rat Czar is working on that.
Dog in the dog stroller?
No.
Okay, all right. Did you get honked at?
Oh, yes.
Did you see a beggar in the subway?
Yes.
Did you see a doggy duffel with doggy?
Yes.
Did you see an adult on rollerblades?
A dog on rollerblades?
An adult.
No.
Okay, well, I'm gonna get my idea. You're not gonna probably get bingo on this one.
Sorry. This sounds like maybe some like posh New York. There's a lot of dogs mentioned here. There actually weren't that many dogs in the. We were in like Times Square, Manhattan area, and there were.
I mean, but this is from myfreebingocards.com.
They sound top notch. They sound really high quality.
You know, there's a lot of other ones on there for the listeners.
I liked doing bingo. That was cute. Well, okay. So final segment of this episode. Jared, can you tell us about something new happening this week? It could be an event, an artist, a song, an album, something new to look forward to.
Yeah, actually, I want to talk about Nightjar, local band with Melanie as the singer. They've got a new album. It's called, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Supine?
Supine?
But, so it's this wonderful, like...
I'm going to guess supine C.
Supine
That's
C
what I'm
sounds
going
right.
with.
Sounds poetic.
But basically it's like, the best way I would describe it is like ethereal, atmospheric, cinematic folk music.
Cool.
If you've never heard it before, it's phenomenal.
Nightjar won some big awards, last year? This Tennessee songwriter? I might be misquoting the actual award, but Nightjar won some big awards last year for songwriting, so I'm really looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, but this album is a wonderful listen and a great experience. It's hard to really like pin it down on this genre though, because she kind of blends.
She's pilot lighting, right? She plays a lot of pilot light shows?
I love pilot light shows
Yeah.
and other venues like that. I saw her play Yeehaw once, and the audience at Yeehaw was definitely very confused. Great show though.
They're like, what's this cool music and what do I do with it?
Well, it's like she was playing and there's like a football game going over her head.
No.
Weird, there's some,
Well,
yeah.
Thought you represented. Sorry. Thought you represented.
Well,
cool.
But,
Do you know if there's a release show or just something to check out? It just came out.
It just came out recently. She hasn't, as far as I know, actually, there's not a release show yet.
Okay, well, we stay tuned for that. Nightjar Knox. Nightjar Knox on Instagram if you want to check that out. And it's on Spotify.
It's Spotify, wherever you listen to music.
So you got a couple things to check out. Definitely that album. And also just Google Colonel Bacchus.
Yes.
And look at anything you can find. Memorize all those little sound bites that back in the past episode you heard the dudes spitting out. They were spitting out sound pops that Colonel Bacchus always said the whole time. So go look those up and get yourself a piece of Knoxville history.
Oh yeah,
He's
an
a cool dude.
amazing person.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for playing. We'll be back next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Go get some food.
Go get some food.